Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to another episode of Lack of Focus. I am your host, Ed Horn. Alongside me tonight, Mr. Sean Dorsey. Sean, how's it going, my friend?
Hey guys, how you doing tonight?
Standing. And of course, our producer extraordinaire, Mr. Kris Sheriff. Kris, how's it going, my friend?
Oh, really good. Thanks, Ed. It's good to be here as always.
As always, you'll take note that I am alone in the recording studio today. Our dear friend Chad Brown is experiencing some car trouble, and he is not going to be able to make the recording today. But he sends his regards. So in today's episode, we're going to be covering over a couple of new things. We have the brand new rule book in my formerly nicotine-stained fingers. I have a printed out copy of the rule book, and we're going to cover over some of the subtle changes that we noticed inside there. And today we're going to start off a new segment, sort of, since we don't really have a ton to talk about in second edition, which we're going to call Faction Focus. And we're going to be discussing the Scum faction, kind of the combos. Since we don't know points, we're going to kind of discuss some of the combos that look like they could be pretty good whenever we're moving into the early days of second edition. So all of that is coming up right after this. All right, we're back, and in the flight deck, we're going to cover over all the stuff we've been doing. I have to freely admit that we did a camping trip that involved us going up to a dark park in the upper parts of northern PA, which was mostly my entire focus for the last couple of weeks was getting prepared for this camping trip. It's 3.5 hours north from where I am. It is one of the few areas on the eastern seaboard that is completely devoid of any type of light pollution whatsoever. So you actually get to see the stars as they are intended to be seen. They have a fantastic observatory up there. We got to see all of the big four planets. We got to see Venus and Mars and Jupiter and Saturn through a big 40-inch telescope, which was absolutely amazing. But that also meant that I did not get to see a ton of X-Wing over the last 2 weeks. I tried scheduling a couple of games, but circumstances arose and I never got the opportunity to play. I really want to get back down to I've stripped everything out and I'm just going down with the TIE swarm that I had mentioned in previous episodes. Basically, I'm just running Howl Runner with Backstabber and a bunch of Obsidians and Academies to kind of fill out the ranks in what I think might be a second edition viable list. But I haven't actually had a chance to put it on the table. I've mentioned before that that's the list that I intend to start playing when second edition comes out. So and it's a ship that its dial hasn't changed. So for all intents and purposes, I know how it plays. So it's not that difficult to change from first edition to second edition. But the only thing I really did was basically get the ships and cards out, and that was it. That's all I did. So I am going to move on over to someone else who actually may have done something. Sean, I don't know if you've been doing much of anything, but I'll kick the ball in your court.
I actually touched ships, so that's a positive thing.
That's always good.
But of course, though, they were to send him out to Ira Mayer, so that he could catch up on some of the stuff he doesn't have, so he's 2.0 compatible.
Love Ira. Hi, Ira.
But no, I've actually sat down, and right now I'm still kind of in that state where, because I don't know point costs, I have a hard time coming up with lists. I have to see a lot more of that before I can push a list out. But I'll always have my safety net where I'll throw robots out just because they're simple, easy to not play exactly, but to have a viable list right off the bat. So probably what I'll do is I'll probably start out Scum, probably double robot. I really like the calculation mechanics that they have in the game. So that's a pretty good draw for me. I wish that would have been the focus. The way focus worked was the way that they did calculation in the game.
It's the way I thought focus worked when I first started playing the game. Does that make you feel any better?
Well, yeah. I mean, to me, that's the way it should have worked throughout. Focus shouldn't have affected everything. The focus power should have been like a Jedi power to be able to change all dice or something like that. So, but I'm just getting prepped. I've read the rule book about 5 times. Other than changing some nomenclature, it seems like a very similar game. There isn't a great deal, which I know we'll talk about here in a bit. But
yeah, we'll get to that in the news.
The other thing, one other list I'm looking at is a Luke list. Just throwing, but I'm not going to bring that up today. That's something I want to.
Keep in your back pocket.
For right now, yeah, because I don't totally know. I don't have the grasp on what I want to do yet. But I have some ideas.
Do you give any credence? I know I've seen a couple of guys, and I'm honestly debating this because I'm at the point with first edition. I saw this meme on Facebook the other day where it's basically the Kermit the Frog just going through his 8 degrees of depression, and it's no longer caring about first edition store championships while I'm waiting for second edition kind of thing. Like you're just like waiting and waiting. I've seen a lot of guys that are doing like just printing out the stuff that they've seen online, like getting them on a printer, trying to get them as close to size. We know what the cards are. We now have the rule book. Granted, we don't know the points cost, but what we do have is we have official streams from FFG that at least kind of give you an idea of what a viable squad size could be. So you could actually take like Vader in a couple of ships, or Luke and Wedge in a couple of ships, and kind of get a guess at what, like, not even necessarily being so much concerned about the point cost, but at least this is what a 200 point list looks like in second edition, and at least just playing it that way. I might actually go that route, to be honest with you, because I feel like guessing isn't doing me any good.
Well, what would actually be nice is if they'd reveal an entire quick build card or a couple quick build cards. And my reasoning for that is because that will give you an idea of how they view threat compared to the upgrades. Because I think that's what's going to, not only a pilot skill is part of that, but I think the upgrades that you can put on it is what increases the threat. Basically it's increasing point value, so it increases threat value. That's what I wish that they would do here pretty soon, is give us, like, let's just say 3. Give us 1 from each. Give us a Vader, give us a Luke, and give us, something from Scum that would be in that comparable window. And then allow us to play the game off of that. That's actually, I think, would be the best thing. Seeing the snippets is just not enough for me to be able to start rationalizing full lists and things like that. I got to know what the upgrades are so that I can compare, what used to be a 2-point upgrade or a 3-point upgrade or a 4-point upgrade to, what it is now. And once they do that, I think I'll have a good grasp on how to list build in this game. But until
That's
that
actually
time,
a really good idea.
Until that time, I'm not there yet. My brain doesn't work the way that, some others, where they can throw lists together and believe that it'll work. Really, for me, it's just I have to see it. Once they give me one threat, one full card. So if somebody out there has it, send it to us. Send us a copy or something. If somebody has a core set or whatever the quick build cards are coming in, and then I think we would be well ahead of the game at that point, understanding, at least getting an idea of what we're looking at for builds.
Yeah, so if someone does, I mean, we've seen them out there. Folks have already cracked those core sets open. So yeah, if somebody has them and is willing to shoot us a few photos so we can kind of get an idea. We're not, obviously nobody has point cost yet unless you're on the playtest team. But beyond that, yeah, that would be awesome. I think that's a fantastic idea. It's actually a better idea than what I had. All right, Kris, you said you had some adventures in a near-death experience, and that's kind of where you left us in the pre-show. So now I want to know what happened.
Build tension by drinking my tea. So we are recording on Saturday morning again, hence a cup of tea, because apparently this is our regular recording day now. So obviously
it works out. It works out best for Sean too, because Sean's still kind of recovering from his issues, and it's easier for him not to be up late. So I'm all right with it.
No, I don't.
I agree.
So obviously I didn't get the last show edited on time, and I said there'd been some like health stuff, but went to bed on a Monday evening, and my aim is to have like the show done the Tuesday after we record. So this one should be out on, where are we? On the 17th of July would be my aim normally.
You're dating the show, Kris. Dating the show.
Yeah. And I went to bed and I was freezing, and it's been absolutely roasting in Calgary. So I was saying to Jill, "Is the window open or something?" She's like, "No, it's roasting. What are you talking about?" So I was like, obviously had something wrong and didn't really think anything of it, just got through the night. Jill got up to go to work, and then I got up when the baby was crying and I didn't feel that good, so I phoned Jill and was like, "You might need to come back home, I'm not sure I feel well." And then the next thing I remember, I'm on the floor in the landing, just collapsed, looking like that's not the view from my bed. I'm pretty sure I got out of bed. So I'm
Oh
like,
my
oh,
god.
okay. So I phoned my wife back. I'm pretty sure. I'm thinking I should probably tell her she needs to come home. She was intending to phone me once she got to work. So the thing I remember after that is the phone's on speakerphone. Jill was like talking to me, and I'm in the nursery now with the crib upside down and the baby crying in the crib, and I'd collapsed and flipped the crib over, and I'm like, Jill had been on speakerphone for 20 seconds with the baby crying and me not speaking.
Oh jeez.
So yeah, it was fun times. Feared that I'd like killed the baby. So I managed to like pick her up, make it back to our bedroom, just like threw myself onto a bed and like just lying down and trying to check for like exposed bones and anything.
Yeah, it's always a good. Baby's okay, right?
Yeah, she was fine. Literally, as soon as I like picked her up and made it back to her bed, she settled down really quickly, and luckily there was no problems. But obviously, I'm then shitting my pants. That what do I do now? I'm not going to try and make it downstairs because in the 12 feet across the landing or whatever, I've collapsed twice. So Jill got in touch.
And you have no memory of that.
Just blacked out, fainted. I don't know, no idea.
Holy crap!
One of our friends came around and grabbed me something to drink and took Evie downstairs, started giving her a breakfast, and then when Jill got home, we rushed me to urgent care, and yeah, I was in for like 5 hours. I'm not as bruised anymore, but I had all of the needles and EKGs and X-rays, and they thought it was pneumonia, and then sent me for X-rays, and they came back clear. So then they didn't think it was pneumonia, and then they had no idea what it was. Then they settled on it being pneumonia that just didn't appear to be pneumonia, and then sent me away. So it was an interesting morning. But I've been.
So you
fine.
never got down to a root cause?
No. All the tests came back was my O2 count was low, and that my white count, like my body was fighting off some form of infection, but we had no idea what it actually was. I've been fine since. I've not taken the inhaler anymore. I'm not taking any more of the antibiotics. I haven't collapsed since that day, so touch wood. I'm like not dead, and the baby's fine. So.
Holy crap!
So yeah, sorry for not getting the show edited, guys.
Oh no, that's totally fine. Like, so yeah, that was the last that I had heard, was that you had collapsed when you were with the baby and that you thought you had pneumonia, but I did not get all the details on that.
No,
there was some radio silence on that one. Kind of like for me too. I mean, it's you kind of when
yours was for a specific reason. I wasn't going to bother you with what you were going through, Sean.
Yeah, but it's that's just the weird thing is when you have things like that I call them mine's a life altering event. So it's Chris's could potentially be the same thing because if it's just exhaustion, that's something. If it's pneumonia, that's a little deeper. That means that you need to pay more attention. But if it's something more than that, if it comes back, then that you really have to do something. And it's a scary thing when you have these weird events that you don't control. It's hard to fathom sometimes. And the one good thing, babies are very resilient. They're built that way. They're
thankfully
the guilt. I actually understand, kind of the parental guilt that you have because there could have been more damage. But you see videos on the internet, kids having their dressers fall on them and things, and not much happens.
It was that just the terror of what the hell has happened. I don't. It's been the first experience. I'm sure it'll happen again, but yeah. And I'm not I feel fine. I don't think there's anything wrong. I'm pretty convinced, and was convinced straight away that it was more to do with whatever gave me the chills the night before.
Yeah.
Was more of it. So.
Well, welcome to parenthood. It's one of those things, like, if that had happened and you were home alone, you wouldn't have lent it as much. I mean, it would have still been a scary experience, I'm sure, but it wouldn't have been lent you that much concern whenever there's a baby involved and you start running through your head. If something happens to me right now, the baby's here by herself and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting, let's say. But yeah, that was that. So,
but you're feeling much better now.
Oh, I was feeling fine in the afternoon of the same day. My grandfather is over from the UK as well. He's currently staying at my mum's in BC. But he was here as well.
British Columbia, for those of us aren't in Canada.
Yeah.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Just checking.
But he's not got the best health, so I then had the terror of, like, I've killed a baby and my grandfather's going to come out and see me collapsed and dead baby and he's going to have a heart attack and he's going to be dead. Just like the entire, just filled with dead people. Yeah. But,
oh my, I don't mean to laugh.
No, it's when Jill got back, it was like, oh, we left a note. We're just out for a little bit. Nothing to worry about. Then Jill left me an urgent care to go and like grab a baby and make sure my granddad was okay, because he'd literally only arrived the night before. So it was one of those interesting days, But no, yeah. Fun stories.
We all have them.
Yeah, and then
so nothing.
Go on.
So nothing bad was the end result, thankfully. Like, you're feeling better now, baby's fine.
Still got an extra day off work, and then I was, the rest of the week I was just tired. I'd feel fine until I didn't, and then I just went and had a nap. So I got to have like naps, and like when my wife looked after me, it was so hard. So
that's tough. That's tough work. One of the best pieces of parenting advice I ever got was that if you napped as often as the baby did, you'd be perfect. Because one of the big things is like, oh, well, how are you sleeping whenever you get a new baby? If you nap when they nap, you're on their same sleep schedule. It's perfect.
Oh, a sleep schedule like changed this week, and it's really thrown me off because I've got loads to get done, like with editing, and I'm running a massive Team Yankee game this coming weekend. So I'm like just trying to rush through painting a crap ton, a metric shit ton of chieftains and rapiers and T-72s and hinds, and so I've got loads of stuff to paint. I've set up the airbrush, and I can't airbrush when the baby's in the room with me because of the fumes and stuff.
Yeah, so probably not a good idea.
Yeah, I'd planned on doing it at these specific times of day, and then a sleep schedule was just changed. So I'm like, on the first day when it happened, I was like, poised. She's going to wake up at any point. I can't do anything. I'm going to wait for her to wake up. And I'm like, fuck this. I'm just going to do what I want until she wakes up.
That's the best. That really is the best mentality. It really is.
It's been good.
No X-Wing then?
I did get a game in.
It was a toss that in there. I mean, I'm glad you're feeling better. I want to make sure that's good. But
I got a game in last night. I ran a variation on my Darth Vader, TIE Reaper, and double TIE Striker list. It was actually on the Sentry Box's Facebook live stream. I continued my run of getting my ass kicked on stream, so that was fun.
Well, you're kind of playing at a disadvantage. You had mentioned to us in between segments that you were actually playing that list at second edition rules. So when Vader doesn't have his evade and you don't have engine upgrade, he plays very, very differently in first edition.
So yeah, my list at the moment is, I put VI on Vader because I'm planning on trying out will you boost his pilot skill in his initiative in the engagement phase. I'm like, that's probably the only simulation for it. Then TIE X1 title, advanced targeting computer, and no other upgrades. So I was
Yeah, that does make it a little bit
I
more.
was going
He's
to
a little
put
bit more bare bones, and
yeah. I didn't use his evade action in the game at all. I didn't give him engine, so I didn't have boost. All of my barrel rolls started from center and were, it was not gradiated. It was always all front, middle, or back. Yeah, it's hard.
I think that for me, and we're going to get into that when we get into the rule book, but I think that's really, I think we kind of experienced a little bit of that whenever we were talking last week about ships and things, and Chad's like, well, everything just feels like, it's not nearly as strong. I think it was his major complaint when he was talking about the TIE Phantom. And I'm like, I don't know if you've looked at the game or the other ships, nothing looks super strong. There's a handful of ships that are kind of standouts that are probably going to be super expensive, like Dash, but beyond that, I think everyone's at a disadvantage. And when you don't have those abilities to token stack and you don't have those abilities, just the differences in how evade's going to work in the game is going to play very, very different. While the rules themselves may be very, very similar, I think the functionality is going to be much, much different.
Yeah, and that was the big thought I had, was like trying to so I'll go through a full list. It was Vader, VI, title, and a targeting computer. Then a Scarif base pilot, so a PS1 Reaper with Krennic. Obviously, optimized prototype goes on to Vader to give him an extra shield. An ISB slicer, advanced ailerons and lightweight frame, and then 2 strikers with ailerons and lightweight frame. So I've got a solid 3-ship PS1 group, and it's awesome. It's really good fun to fly, so I'm definitely going to keep playing it and probably stick with this exact list. But it was just really good fun. But like I was playing against Greg, the store manager at Sentry Box, and we're on the stream. He was running Saw Gerrera with Ezra and 3PO and Crackshot and some of the upgrades. Then it's Niem Num with R2D2, pattern analyzer, auto thrusters, and I straight away in this game I'm like, Regens is bullshit. First edition regen is bullshit in second edition. Like, so I could chip away at him, and I've got advanced prototypes. I'm always removing a shield and stuff like that. But I must have killed Niem Num twice, and he finished on full health.
Yeah, throwing down that much damage. And that's even in second edition, the new R2D2, it only works, 2 or 3 times, and then that's it.
3 times, I think. I think the normal one is Regens 2, and R2D2 gives you an extra 1 or 2 from memory. But,
I think it's 2 for the R2 unit, and then it's 3 for R2D2, if my memory serves.
Yeah. Greg plays Niem Num a lot. He's really good at making use of his ability, so he never has stress. So he'll do his Talon roll, use Pattern Analyzer to get his boost so he can get into range 1 of a ship, so that he can trigger his ability to get rid of all the stress. Whereas he would have been having 2 stress down to 0.
Yep.
I got a perfect opening engagement I wanted, and left Saw Gerrera on 1 hull. He got a lucky blinded pilot crit on me on one of my PS1 ships, who was at range 1 behind Saw Gerrera.
Oh.
So then I'm like, okay, so now Saw is exactly where I wanted Vader to be. So I've got to switch up all my moves, because there's a ship on the table where I expected it to be empty space. And then that was the big unlucky part of the game, and then I took a risk, and my nub clipped the rock for the striker. I knew I couldn't rely on Vader to kill Niem on his own, and I had a striker in a position where if I did my flappy wing and then a bank, I was pretty sure I'd have Niem Num in a kill box for 2 ships shooting him at range 1, and the nub clipped the rock. Oh, okay. So no shot then, and it would have been perfect had it not been shit. So that's the turning point for me, was that I messed that move up. It was really, really close. I was 90% sure it was going to fit, and it didn't. So my own fault. Get good. But those were two turning points. Not killing Saw in that engagement, and then landing on a rock effectively. Because obviously I'm on the rock, so I then can't barrel roll because I don't get my action, which means I've got to flap over a rock, and I need to make sure that that flap doesn't leave me on the rock to hit it with my maneuver. So so I've got to do it. I've got to flap in a way I didn't want to flap, just to make sure that I'm off the rock for next time, and it snowballed into a massive positional disadvantage for me, and that one mistake was quite telling. It just took my firepower out of the game, and then I've got Vader. I managed to kill...
Handicapped Vader, no less.
Yeah. I got it down to Vader against Niam Num, but he was back up to full shields, and Vader had taken lost all 3 of his shields, and I think a hull. So it was one of those back and forths of, I can't really joust you, I can try for position. And then when we went for the inevitable K turns at range 3, he killed me, and then it was game. Yeah. I had my...
There is a spot that we can see this game, though. It was on the stream, so maybe we can add that to the link in the show notes when we post this up, so people can see that game itself.
Yeah, you can all watch it and see how terrible I am at X-Wing on stream. I honestly, there's one solid mistake I'll make on stream every time, just through, like, in honesty, I think just not playing as much as I would like, but I'm picking the pace up. I'm getting at least one game every 2 weeks. I'd like that to be at least one game a week. So we'll see. I think
that was my goal too, to try to hit one game a week.
Yeah. After this event where I've been doing a crap ton of paintings, I've just been really busy doing painting models for work. So all of these Team Yankee models, I had to do the Age of Sigmar box, I had to do my Test of Honor box. So just painting miniatures all the time. That's eating up a lot of spare time. So because I get to plan the events the next few, I'm going to make sure it's either stuff I already got painted or stuff that doesn't need painting.
There you go.
That'll make me feel better about taking time to play X-Wing.
Get you some free time scheduled in.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I want to throw something in real quick, Ed. You said you talked about token stacking and the kind of the changes to the game and how that's going to... The game right now, from an outsider's point of view, feels like the Wave 1 to Wave 2 game that we had when X-Wing first came out. It doesn't feel like the Wave 12 or 13 that we're in now, which is interesting to me because the first time in X-Wing that I saw, like, it wasn't really token stacking, but it was like overlapping effects that was similar to token stacking, was when we went to Minnesota. A bunch of us from Omaha went to Minnesota, and we took the Super Chewie build-up. So that's when we took Chewbacca. C-3PO had just come out. You put Flight Instructor, Falcon Title, and I can't remember what exactly we did.
You put Flight Instructor on something. Oh, it was a different time. It was a different time.
Totally different time.
Different time, kids.
And when
back in our day.
But that's when you put Biggs out there, and you put, at the time, a Red Squadron, which was then replaced by Aaron Kraken when he came out, for the extra action. And, that's kind of, to me, the start of the new era of X-Wing, is when C-3PO came out, and then you could start putting all these pieces together that, having a focus token, I think we push the limit, actually, if it was I can't totally remember what we did with Chewie. Then we had a rookie pilot in there just because you needed a points filler. And that's the way the game looks and feels to me right now, is we're not at a point where the game is just so based upon not the ship, not the flying, not anything other than this extra stuff that you're doing. But that was the first time that I felt that ever in X-Wing, was when we went to Minnesota. And I remember, bringing that up to Alex Davey the day before, and he's like, you can't do that, won't be effective. And we had 3 people with it up there, and 2 of them, I believe, made the cut with it, and one pretty much should have played for the final, the regional final up there with it. Yeah. So it's a pretty, I like the state of the game. I feel like it's back to where when I enjoyed the game the most, and and then it's a game of flying again, and make a mistake and the whole game can fall apart, or fly really well and just dominate.
But it's not a knock on Greg's ability or the way that he flew Niam Num really, really well. Obviously, I've got pilot skill on him with Vader, but my dial's shit and I don't have boost. So we were talking about it. It's like the dial's pretty predictable with the really limited greens. So if I do K-turn for a positional advantage, my next moves were predictable. And even if he does something off, he's got push, the limits, and boost, and can reposition quite well. But it did feel like I was playing a different game. Just like when you looked at the card combinations and stuff, and I think it was the second time he did the full Nian Num combo of Talon Roll, boost, push the limit to get a target lock, take no stress, and then he's got a range 1 shot, no stress. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah. And
this is what's wrong with the game, and right here.
Just those individual upgrades that are all really neat suddenly start to pile up, and you're like, yeah, but it's not about the platform, it's about the options it can take rather than, and I don't know, can't think of a succinct way to say it, but I won't be sad to see the reset button get pushed, and I'm relatively confident that I'll be able to, I think when I was talking about it on stream last night, I'm relatively confident I'll be able to play these 4 ships. I don't know that I'll be able to play them with the upgrades I'd want. I might not be able to put Krennic on there. I might not be able to have lightweight frame, or I don't even know if lightweight frame exists from memory now. But I'm sure I'll be able to fit in these 4 ships into a list. So I'm going to keep flying them, and I just love flappy wings. I love advanced ailerons and adaptive ailerons. It's awesome. So I don't care. I'll keep losing games on stream, and it's a good list. I just played it badly.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'll get some wins fit for next week.
None of this stuff counts anyway. But in 2 months, it's all going to go away, and it's not even going to matter anymore. All right, so that turned into a little bit of a longer flight deck. We're going to go ahead and move on to the news right after this. All right, we're back. And in the news, we're going to cover over a couple of quick articles that came out. The TIE Fighter article from Fantasy Flight Games has come out, and they basically showed us, well, all the things we already kind of knew. Thanks to our friends over at Bell of Lost Souls, they basically revealed every TIE Fighter pilot, all the upgrades. So I felt a lot of the same stuff that came out of that one came out of the one whenever they did the fire spray, that there wasn't really anything surprising in there because we already kind of seen it. And of course, we've got this, the rule book. I think we're going to save this for the end here because Sean has also brought to our attention that there is some discussion on the Luke Gunner crew, which I think is going to be an interesting kind of case in point. I don't know that it has been officially released by FFG, but again, I know that our friends over at Bell of Lost Souls did all of the conversion kits and revealed all of the cards. So the card itself in question, Luke Skywalker, is in the Gunner slot. He does have the 1 Force icon that obviously regenerates each turn, and his rules read as follow. At the start of the engagement phase, you may spend 1 Force token to rotate your turret indicator. So here's the argument. The argument, of course, is that they made a very big deal to curb 360-degree firing arcs whenever they change the turret rules, so that you now have to rotate them, and they're not this basically point-and-shoot mechanic. And then they introduce a character that basically does the same thing. Now, it's not 100% still the same thing. Like, obviously, the ship has to have the gunner crew slot available to be able to put Luke in, and has to be a rebel ship, and has to be able to have the points, which we do not know. He could be 45, 50 points. We have no idea how many points he is. but they're basically saying, hey, turrets are fixed except for this particular instance. So that's where that's where all the ire is kind of coming from. I don't think people care about the change to turrets. I think everyone liked the change to turrets. But to then see the Luke character card come in to break that rule is where the argument comes in. So you can still see instances where you have like Thought Hans floating around out there.
Well, I think yes and no, because the difference between old turrets, so let's go with the Fat Han idea, the old turret and the new turret is, old turret, you could choose anything. Every ship around you was a viable target as long as it was in range and so on and so forth. For this, you're creating one viability instead of having the whole field. I have to make the choice now, and that's my choice. It doesn't mean, so if I choose to shoot at, Darth Vader, who's at range 2 because he's the closest ship, that's my choice. I don't have all the options that I had before, with the old turret. The other thing is, and why this doesn't bother me as much as it bothers probably others, is because it's one ship and one upgrade. So you're going to only do this on one ship because you can't duplicate it. So as long as this is the only occurrence of that, the game's fine. But if they start putting other things that create this, then the game starts to lessen and starts to devolve back into the turret game that we have today. But I think I get people's reaction to it right away. But I think when you look deeper into it, it's a one-time deal. You can only do it on one ship. So it does make Han, let's say you put him on Han, it does make Han better. But when you get down to brass tacks, if you go back to the movies and you want to equate all this to the movies, that's an iconic scene in the movies. Luke was 360 in that turret and shooting stuff down. They shot down 2 of the 4. It doesn't really bother me too much. What they could do if they had to retcon this later, if it became too powerful, is you just make Luke's ability to recharge in every other turn ability, and then you just action it out.
They'll probably modify points costs and just take him out of the game that way.
Right, and exactly.
That's what you'll need to see. It's one ship, but how many double turret lists are people running? And I'm not disappointed to see the ability. I think I'm disappointed to see it in Wave 1.
That's true. Yeah. There is one point I want to kind of point out that I don't know that anyone's kind of hit on just yet. It's the fact that it's taking up the gunner slot.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other gunners in that slot provide the ability to take a second attack. So that's what the original gunner was if you miss this one, you got a second shot at it. Luke does not do that. So while he does provide the ability to basically permit you to focus into one particular side of your ship, he's not providing that second attack. You can still miss.
Would you rather have the ability to take the potential of a second attack, or a guarantee to be able to take an attack?
Yeah, and that's it.
That's the give and take. Isn't that a give and take? Isn't that what you're giving up?
Yeah, I feel like Luke will prove to be the best of the current range of gunner slot options we have, because it's a guarantee. Like, Han is awesome, you get to shoot first. The ones where you get to do an extra shot from like one out one end, one out the other is awesome, but it's massively situational. That you need the skill to plan where your arcs are, line those shots up, and do them. Luke is just Luke is a crutch. Luke is flying the Falcon when it came out, having the old circle, the asteroid in the center of the table meta. That's what Luke brings back, and we beat it then. I'm sure we'll beat it now. But that, whatever ship you put it on, Dash is always going to get a shot.
That's true. So I'm perusing over all the gunner cards that have been kind of revealed. Most of them, I stand corrected, most of them provide a second attack.
There's
things
some
like
interesting ones. Yeah.
Yeah, Bosk provides an additional attack. There's ones like the BT1 that just allows you to change one of your hits to crits for the Scum side. But most of the other gunners that I'm looking at, Veteran Tail Gunner, Veteran Turret Gunner, like they all provide additional attacks. Obviously, Han's ability allows you to attack at Initiative 7. Dengar provides additional attacks. So like most of this, like what you're giving up is that second attack. So, like Sean said, it's kind of a give and take. Yes, you're going to be guaranteeing that you can fire at one ship. It also means that if you miss that attack, it's over. Like you don't get to do anything else more with it. So, while I agree that it's a strong ability and it does allow you to put one ship on easy mode, the downside to it is you don't get the second attack, and we still don't know what the points are for Luke. And if it's high enough, it might point himself out to not being viable on other builds.
Yeah.
One other piece to this that I just thought of is that the one thing it does do is it allows you to not have to take an action to move the turret.
Yeah.
So that is actually a little bit more than you think about because now you're double actioning. This is creating that double action effect, which seemingly they're trying to get that out of the game, without consequence.
And on top of that, it's with perfect information.
Absolutely.
So it's the whisper decloak thing all over again. Something happening with perfect information.
Well, and then if you think about, I probably misquoting myself here on how many of the turreted ships have a linked action that goes into a stress token. You would still be able to perform that perfect information even while you're stressed because you're performing the focus thing or the force thing. So you could still have moved, focused, barrel rolled, and then get to do that on top of it. So that's kind of getting into that triple action. So I can totally understand where the argument's coming from. I'm not discounting it. What I'm saying is I think that there are, like, you're losing the second attack. I don't know, maybe now that I'm putting some thought into that, now that I've said that out loud, I went, you can actually triple action a ship with that if you had the option for it. Maybe. But again, FFG has the option.
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
The Falcon doesn't have a linked action. Dash doesn't have a linked action.
Oh, okay. Well then.
So
and we don't know what ships have that gunner slot anyway, but there's only a handful.
Those are the two. I think they were talking about like the ones that have. Like the Falcon's got to have it.
You would think. They've got the bad Chewbacca art for the veteran tail gunner on that one. Maybe the K-wing, but I don't think the K-wing
I was thinking. Maybe the K-wing. Y-wing? Did you say a Y-wing has gonna swap now? I think I remember.
I hope so. I hope so because the Y-wing was a 2-seater.
Yeah,
the Rio was a gunner, not a radio operator.
I think Alex said something about it at Worlds on one of the stream games. I can't remember. We'll see. But I doubt you're going to put a 1 trillion point Luke Skywalker on a Gold Squadron bomber. But, it's going to
completely wreck the meta with that one ship.
Yeah, he's going to be going on to a Han or a Dash. But if you look at the Falcon now, it's got 3 crew slots. Is that right?
Currently, I thought I had 2. Like in first edition, I had 2.
Okay, yeah.
It's 2. It is 2.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was going to say, I've basically vacated all my first edition information.
We were chatting about this last night.
If it had 3, you would have seen R2D2, C3PO, and flight instructor on every single one of them.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
because that combination would be disgusting.
If you go with it, it's got 2. So if you convert that into second edition with it having a crew and a gunner, seems legit. That sounds like something that could happen. So Kanan and Luke gives you an extra force charge, so you can rotate and still have a modifier if you need it. You're only going to regenerate 1, but you've got 2 on your ship now.
Yeah, but again, how many points is that? Like, are we talking like?
I don't care. I'm just going to run Dash. One ship meta, man. One ship meta.
The one ship build, the mythical one ship build at 200 points.
Yeah.
It might be possible. Like I remember being in the latter part. Like, is it possible to get one ship fill up the entire 100 points of the old first edition? It never seemed to be quite possible, but maybe viable is more correct.
Talking about one ship, I watched Aaron Bonner with Echo knock out entire lists on Vassal before. So, and that wasn't even a full 100 points. That was just Echo kitted out with a great person flying it, and much to the frustration of the other players. I've watched it happen, it'll never happen in a real meta, hopefully. I'm praying that we'll never see a one ship 200 point list just behemoth out there.
I think, I hope that the YT 2400 doesn't have a gunner swap, is all I can say. Because I don't want to deal with crying about it. I don't even care if it's good or not. I just don't want to deal with people crying about it.
Because out of the gate, that's going to be the first build that people really lean towards it. Dash seems pretty heavy, mostly because there's only a handful of ships that have the 4 attack dice to start off with.
Yeah.
A lot of the other ones have dropped off and been dropped down to 3. So he already starts off to good. They fixed his donut hole concerns as far as I'm concerned with the way that it was flying before. So now he doesn't have that problem. He's got a decent dial. He's got basically his same ability. And you toss Luke onto him. So now even being on, he can fly through a rock, I could see that being a pretty strong build. That'll be a good faction focus for the Rebels next week.
Oh, well. Any other news? I think we've whined about Luke more than enough.
Yeah, no. I think that's about it. So let's kind of get to the key one right here. FFG released the full rule book, not the rules reference. That has not come out that we have seen, but we do have basically what comes in the starter set, which makes sense. There are people that have it, they've opened it, so they probably got this in their hands, so they're getting this out there. I flipped through it, like Sean. I think I've read this like 3 or 4 times at this point. There's only a couple of things that seem to stand out as minor adjustments to how the rules read, but nothing super special that I went, oh wow, that's interesting. Well, we already knew how evade was going to change. Did anybody have anything that picked anything out that was like a change that was like, oh wow, that's interesting?
No, I don't have a change, but my question is, when the game releases, will there only be 6 obstacles? Will the obstacles from 1.0 not be allowed, and you only have the 6 that release in the core set? That's my one major question, because that changes strategies, tactics. Because it's going to launch with 3 asteroids, 3 debris clouds.
I think so for competitive play. I can't remember exactly. I'm sure I asked them at Worlds. I'll have to go back through the Q&A at the end on that video.
I'm almost positive that's what he said. I think you're in agreement that there's 3 obstacles and 3 the debris tokens. And then, of course, you have the one that the cargo chute spits out, so that's a possibility too. But that's not in every game, obviously.
Yeah, because I remember asking if a mustache rock made the cut, and it doesn't.
Ooh, one of my favorite rocks.
Yeah, it's everyone's favourite. But I don't feel like there's a massive problem if they do, because you have to buy a core set anyway. If you want to keep playing 2.0, you've got to buy a core set, so everyone will have access to the rocks that are legal, and you will have them in your collection anyway. I will be keeping all of my cardboard rocks, just because if they do stay the same, I might not necessarily want to buy those packs that they come in. So,
right, I agree with that.
So one thing I was, and I'm just double backing to make sure that I didn't miss it. I know that I'd heard Alex say that there were certain actions like the target lock, like the boost, that if you couldn't complete them, your action was lost. Was that ever explicitly written in the rule? Because I don't remember seeing that.
Have a look.
Because we'll know that's how it's supposed to work. But I'm even looking at like the lock action, for example. I don't remember saying if it's.
I think
I'll
it's
just read it.
in the actions.
It's in the actions. Okay. Perform a single actions. I'll just read it since we're gonna.
Yeah.
A ship may perform one action during the perform action step and its activation during the activation phase. These actions are available to the ship or listed in the action bar to the right side of the ship card. In addition to the action during the perform action step, Card abilities may instruct the ship to perform additional actions. There's no limit to the number of actions a ship can potentially perform. However, a ship cannot perform the same action more than once per round. I'm so happy that they cleared that up. Some actions icons are in red. After a ship performs one of these actions, it gains a stress token. A ship that is stressed for any reason cannot perform actions or execute red maneuvers. So I don't see specifically that if you fail to do an action, you lose your action step. So even when I'm looking at barrel roll, ship cannot perform barrel roll, overlap another ship, or move through an obstacle. It tells you what you can't do. Just like with boost, you cannot perform boost, so it would overlap another ship or move through an obstacle. Ships. So like I know that these are things that are in the game because Alex specifically said them. Like if you tried to take a target lock and failed, that was your action. But I don't see any specific wording. And I'm only looking for the rules lawyers in the game.
Is it not?
Because I know it's going to happen.
But was that not introduced via the FAQ that if you tried to target lock and failed, you got your action back? I don't think that's stated. I don't think it says in the current rulebook that. So I don't think the wording in the rulebook is actually changed.
Oh, that's a good point because you're right. They may have FAQ'd that to allow you to take another action in the previous edition. That's a fair point, and they're just omitting to put that rule in.
Yeah. Can't see anything. But I don't care. Screw you. Yeah, I don't think the wording of the actual rule has changed that much, so I would guess from memory, I think it was the FAQ that introduced the fact that if you target what failed, you get another action.
Gotcha. One of the other things that jumped out to me now that I've seen it and gone through this again, special weapons have a range bonus indicator now, indicating whether or not the weapon does or does not grant a range bonus. So in the previous edition of the game, any special weapon ignored range bonuses, and now that's not true. Some do and some do not permit that.
From memory, missiles and torpedoes do not gain range bonuses or suffer range penalties. Cannons and turrets do.
Yeah, that's where everyone's big complaint was with like the heavy laser cannon. Aside from the fact that it's not bullseye work only, that it didn't. That still you still got range bonuses off of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like HLC's fine. I don't think anyone should be complaining too much because the only ship you want to put it on anyway was Dash, and he has it built in. So
yeah, so why? Yeah, you don't need it anymore anyway. Although I still remember, again, this is going to be our old crotchety get off my lawn days. I still remember a list that I think who took that. I want to say it was Ricky White took that, the Bloody Daggers list. To the 2013 or 2014 Worlds, where it was 2 Red Squadron X-Wings and 2 Dagger Squadron B-Wings that had heavy laser cannons. Like, it was just a brutal list to be able to put 2 heavy laser cannons on the table on B-Wings, which was super cool. You still could do it, but you just need to fly better and get those into your bullseye arc instead.
Yeah, so because HLC goes up to 5 dice at range 1, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So awesome. Just get a mini bullseye arc and kill everything. Murder it dead.
Yep, absolutely. They 100% verified that the increase and decrease in maneuverability difficulty. So there were certain crits, for example, that used to say make this red, so it went from a green to a first edition. It would be second edition would be blue. Blue to a red without missing that middle step of a white maneuver. So now that has kind of been clarified, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything else that really jumped out to me. The only other thing was the clarification in the system phase on how bombs go off in the order in which they go off on. I think we kind of assumed it, but we kind of like have clarification on how that works now. How jam officially works in second edition, I don't know that was made abundantly clear. That has been cleared up.
I've got no idea because I've been trying to learn the new rules and trying to play 1.0 with some horrible hybrid of rules. So I was doing jams last night, and I have no idea if I did them right or not. But if anything, I only nerfed myself.
You only nerfed yourself.
Yeah.
I remember another one that jumped out to me. Tractor tokens. In first edition, the more tractor tokens that you had acquired, it dropped down. You could potentially drop a ship down to 0 agility. Now the rules explicitly state if you have at least 1, it lowers yours by 1. It doesn't accumulate anymore through tractor tokens.
And you can still mess around with medium and large base ships now, and it goes 1, 2, 3 for a number of tokens required and stuff.
Right, exactly. Similar to how the new well, it's always the rules for ionization, but now they moved large base ships up to 3, mediums are at 2, and small base ships are at 1.
Yeah,
that's about it. They definitely got the docking rules kind of explicit, but if you're used to, we've had a couple other ships that have done docking before. Now you can dock and redock, which should be kind of interesting. I don't know. I don't know if you're ever going to have a scenario that you're going to have that happen. Like, honestly,
it's going to do it because you can.
I'm trying to imagine the advantage of it, though. So, like, there's a couple of ships. Obviously, the Ghost can do it. The Nashta Pup on the YV666 can do it. There's not many ships that can. I guess the Gazanthian Epic, but we're not even talking Epic.
I'm going to play Epic and just redock my damaged TIE fighters. I can't get the points now, can you, dickhead?
Just start flying all the damaged ones to the Gazanthi. That'd be awesome. Oh man, I can't wait to see what they're going to do with Epic. I know that it's kind of on a back burner for them. I get that. I just have these beautiful ships that are sitting in my display case that have no rules.
So I definitely stand by the fact that once 2.0 comes out, we should do some Epic games and just show that it's still working, it's still playable.
Just use the first edition Epic rules.
Yeah, just don't be a tool and it'll be fine.
So anything else anyone wants to cover in the news on that?
No, I think I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good. So if you haven't seen it yet, there will be a link in the FFG site to go and get this, print this out and read over it. Again, I don't think there's any major surprises, some minor clarifications. We're going to move on to the main topic tonight, which is going to be a faction focus on the Scum factor. I've tasked each of the hosts, myself included, to kind of pick, since we don't know points and we don't really know what's going to work, just cool looking combinations of pilots and ship cards, or pilots and upgrades, or maybe 2 pilots that would function well together to see what might look cool going into second edition. So we're going to move on to that right after this. All right, we're back, and in Faction Focus, we're going to kind of look at the Scum factor, kind of give a preview of what second edition might look like for some good combos for pilots and upgrades, combinations. I think Kris has a more complicated one, not necessarily complicated, but definitely more well thought out one. I just took 1 pilot and 1 upgrade and said, these 2 look good. Oh. So I'm going to let you lead the way on this one and kind of give us the list that you kind of developed with this.
Well, I was going on a maybe this will work, obviously points depending. I've gone pretty bare bones on my upgrades, but I've gone with a YV666, so Morello Eval, because I really like his ability to be able to run off a table, come back on. And
super cool. Yeah, super cool.
The options that opens up for like positional play. Then Tobias Beckett going on there as well, because it's got 3 crew slots at the moment. So it has to maintain at least 1 of them.
You would hope. You would absolutely hope.
So I'm pretty confident. I'll state my my X-Wing kudos, which is pretty small bet anyway, but that you can run Tobias Beckett on a YV666. So the ability to be able to fly off a table, come back on, and jank an obstacle in the way of someone's deployment. It just is a pretty fun combo. And then,
I'm sorry, just to camp onto that one real quick. I'm curious if you'd be able to take the Nashta Pup with it, take it off the board, come back on the board, and then undock. Granted, it's Z. I get it. But does the Nashta Pup have to be? It has to be whenever the ship's destroyed, correct? Is it still that same rule?
So, no, it's that it can dock with you. So the Iron's Tooth title lets them dock with you, and then I think you have to buy a Nashta Pup.
The old Nashta Pup only came out when the ship exploded, and then it took on the pilot skill of the pilot, whomever it was that he blew up with. And I don't think it's the same anymore. I could be wrong, but I'm just thinking ahead of time of like not only be able to drop 1 ship behind an enemy line, but to drop 2 ships behind an enemy line. I could see being a weird little combo.
Yeah, so I think the title lets you dock any Z,
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, then you could do something like that where you take him off the board, bring him back on the board, and then like deploy not one but two ships kind of coming out that way.
Yeah. And then I've not gone quite that jank, but I'm now kind of regretting it.
This is me going, how crazy can we make this? I'm sorry, go. Yeah, I interrupted your list. By all means, continue.
Yeah. So I'm looking at. I've gone hopeful and gone with Black Sun soldiers, but a mini swarm of 4 Black Sun soldiers, and then throw a missile on each of them. Dreamland, I'd go with cluster missiles, because those are ones where you can do 2 attacks each. So your mini swarm throws out 8 attacks. So if they turn on Morello, because he's now behind them, you've got a mini swarm behind them chasing them that fires 8 shots a turn.
Oh my god.
And if they engage into your mini swarm, then you've got your YV behind them, and that's all gravy. So that would be Dreamland, but
But that's clarification. That's 8 shots in one turn, because you're going to blow all your charges off.
No, you get 4 charges.
Oh, that's a fair point. So that's 2 turns. Good point.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That is pretty janky. I'm on board now. That's pretty janky.
Yeah. So
I'm looking at cluster missiles right now. There are 4 charges on cluster missiles. You're right. Yeah. I'll be damned.
I'm hoping like you can do even more, but I'm loath to go too deep into it. You know, can you
again without knowing points? We're not really sure what fits in.
Upgrades onto Morello. Can you give the Black Sun soldiers EPTs? If you've got to drop down to Binary Pirates, it kind of still works, but you lose out on your initiative bid. So I don't know. We'll see. But that's something I think could be fun. A little missile toting mini swarm and
cool.
An outflanking YV666 was what I was thinking.
Yeah, and now you've got me thinking about the possibilities of putting the title on to allow you to be able to to deploy multiple ships. I think I might have to toy with that and see if that works.
So you could do someone like Nundu, where you've got an extra attack dice.
Right.
Dead Man Switch is still a thing, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. Just make it a living bomb.
Deploy your bomb in there, it'd be fine.
All right, so the one that I came up with that I thought was kind of an interesting little combo. We had this discussion, obviously, in the news, how everyone's kind of talking about Luke and how he's bringing back first edition thought processes with being able to move a turret and still have perfect knowledge of where that's going to go and still basically function the same way. I was looking at the combination of Captain Nim and Genius. Really kind of struck me as an interesting little combo. Captain Nim's ability, for those who haven't seen it, before a friendly bomb or mine would detonate, you may spend 1 charge to prevent it from detonating. Now it's a rechargeable, so he can basically continue to do it each turn. And a side note, while you defend against an attack obstructed by a bomb or mine, roll 1 additional one. But Genius was the one that really kind of was interesting to me, mostly because of Captain Nim's initiative of 5. Genius allows you to, after you fully execute a maneuver, if you've not dropped or launched a device this round, you may drop 1 bomb. So what it effectively does is takes, I guess, any pilot that it would be put on back into that position of having a little bit more perfect knowledge on where you can drop it. What's interesting to me with that, though, is that Captain Nim at Initiative 5, most, if not all, of the pilots on the board have already moved. So you're getting almost that same scenario where you still have the same perfect knowledge of where everyone's going as to whether or not it's better to drop your mine here or to drop it after you execute the maneuver. Again, not without knowing point costs and how well it works out. It just seems like a really nasty kind of combination to take some of that first edition thought process into second edition. But again, it's only ever going to be for 1 ship. It's only ever going to be, it's not going to be multiple ships being able to pull it off. I just like the combination of, even in the system phase, because I mentioned it when we talked about the rule book, the system phase is clarified that things happen in the system phase at initiative order. So even at that, you're still on the high end of the initiative side with Captain Nim to determine whether or not you're going to drop that bomb before you move or after. So I think the combination of being able to pull off the ability, drop the bomb, and then not take the damage, and have almost perfect knowledge while you're doing it is kind of tricky and kind of janky. So I thought that was an interesting combination.
Yeah, you only have to look at the prevalence of NIM bombing at the moment in 1.0. If it's good now and it retains most of its potential, it'll be awesome in 2.0 because everything is shit. So anything that's remotely like it is now, it'll be awesome. Depends on the rest of the list. I think Nim works really well because of Sabine and your second bomber. You've got like Nim Miranda is a prime example, and they work really well together. Finding that synergy within the Scum faction would be interesting. I don't know that the loss of Cad Bane, I think, would be another way you could go. What was his? I need to double check his ability now, so I'm not embarrassing myself.
That's okay.
He's
we'll do it live.
Yeah, he's a bombing person as well. Where's he got? After you drop or launch a device, you may perform a red boost action. So if you could find a way to have like add and genius.
Oh. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
You'd need to find a way to do it though.
That is interesting. I have to put some thought into that one. Anyway, that's the one that I kind of came up with. I think I will freely admit the Scum is one of the ones I'm least versed in. So I'm going to intend to get the kit. I have all the ships. I'm not going to have ships here that I can't fly. So, but that's the one that when I was looking through the pilots and the abilities, that one jumped out at me. Sean, I know you have a particular proclivity for a specific droid that we all love dear and near. So why don't you go ahead and on to the combo that you kind of came up with?
So I have two different combos. My first one, of course, is it's breaking away from the traditional IG and token up defensively. It's more of the IG and token up offensively. And so the first combo is the AB combo. Reason being is that if you can still put a cannon on them, you can with A you can pass your calculate to B or vice versa with the title. But what that does though is whichever one has the better shot, that's the one that you're going to token out. So if IGB has a better shot, you're going to pass your calculate token over and maximize getting as many hits with the calculates. Or you can do vice versa, where if you have a ship that's kind of damaged or in a precarious situation, you're passing the calculate token back and forth. Another one that's interesting to me, another combo to me, is because with the IGs, if you take the calculate action, you get an extra calculate token, basically. Is Manaroo. Manaroo with IGB. Because now, what you can do is you could pass a focus token to an IG with 2 calculate tokens, and now you have an offensive-defensive style combination that you really don't realize you have. So you pass the token with Manaroo. It allows that IGB to be more defensive, so you can use the focus on defense if you need to. But basically, it allows you to maximize potential hits with the IGs. It's going to be interesting to me to see, the way the game changes with the IGs and how. I think with IGs you're going to have, just my personal opinion, you have to be more offensive than defensive in the game now, because it's a point and shoot game again rather than a do all this funky stuff and not take damage style game. And with the IGs, IGs have 3 defense dice still, which is amazing to me. So they're a ship that can survive, and they're a ship that can put damage into other ships almost at their leisure at this point with the tokens and with the stacking. I mean, and the other thing is they didn't change it. They didn't really change them much, other than B's ability, I think, changed from using the 3 turn to Talon rolls or whatever it is. You know,
I think one of the important parts for me to take note, and I know I'm kind of guilty of this, I know I've done it at least twice today. When I talk about token stacking, I'm always, when I reference that, I'm talking about defensive token stacking, which made it super difficult to kill ships, which is why builds like TIE Swarm were really kind of pushed out of the game because they just simply couldn't push damage through. To me, it seems like offensive token stacking, being able to get those focus and target locks, is still part of the game. The game really does seem to be motivating more towards an offensive versus defensive style of game. So you still have those abilities and ship combinations that allow you to build offensive token stacking to push damage through. And that's why I think Alex was damage sticks more. It's more sticky now than it was in the past because you don't have those defensive options to be able to stack against it.
Except with the IGs, you can go defensive token stacking, doing the exact same thing.
Well, yeah, and I'd argue certain builds of the TIE Swarm you can do it too, but we'll get there when we get to the Imperial side.
Right, but on the Scum side, the IG is a very survivable ship with 3 defense dice and calculate token galore. You know, if you're playing the offense-defensive game, you play A-B, take target lock with B, take calculate with A, pass one of your calculates over, and now you still have an offensive-defensive capability.
You've still got to remember IGD crew as well, where you can...
Right.
So you can... you've got to assume that Manaru would have a crew swap, because I believe a punishing 1 title removes a crew swap.
Right.
So you've got to assume it has it. So throw that on Manaru, and suddenly she has A's ability as well.
Right.
And, there's other ways of doing it, but
right.
I feel like it opens up a lot of options. For again, you could even look at doing it on a YB. I feel like it's pretty interesting. The ability to be able to get your evades and some calculate tokens and then shift those tokens around, especially because range 1 to 3, so it's a decent sized bubble for that transfer as well. You're not having to fly massively close all of the time. I don't feel like... I know that Max, I think, was talking about the math behind the calculate token and stuff like that. And it's, under given circumstances, it's stronger than a focus token. And especially when you now have potentially 3 calculate tokens on your ship, that's a massive, a mass of options. What if you get, so the way it would work, if you get shot by 1 ship and roll triple focus, you spend all 3. It's like having a focus token. If you're getting shot by 4 ships, you roll an evade, a focus, and a blank, and they only got 1 hit, you're fine. If you got 2, you can spend it. You know, you've got the granularity of knowing exactly. It's not like the second time I tried to say that today and got it wrong.
I don't know. I think you got it better this time.
Yeah. And getting it. So you've got, again, it's decision making with better knowledge because you do it in the time. So it's not like, if I spend my focus token now to convert 1, and then the next time I roll triple focus, it's a pain in the ass. Yeah, if you spend 1 of them now and roll triple focus, you only have 2 left. Pardon me, sorry. But it's better than nothing.
Exactly, and that's... I just think that with... And you said it, it's being able to make choices. It's a ship, I think, that gives you the most choices with your action, more so than any other ship. It depends which combo you run, If you're doing B and D, your maneuverability is different. If you do it, because you're always going to do B, in my opinion. B is just the standard, no matter what you're going to do. You could do B, like you said, and another ship because of the ability to do, or the crew that you can put on given abilities. I just think this is to me personally, this is the most versatile ship right now in Scum as far as the different things you can do. You could do a B in Boba Fett. which to me is a pretty good combination, or an A in Boba Fett, which is a pretty good combination. There's just a lot of different things, and this is a medium-based ship, correct? This one went back to medium,
Yeah.
so it has a whole different like flying. Before the large base to me was too bulky for this. Like you got into situations where you just couldn't get out of some of the kill boxes or some of the different things that you did. But with this smaller base, I think you're going to be able to do a little bit more, better flying with it. We'll see. I'm excited about this. I'm excited about, the kind of the changes that they made. And I like A's ability now better than the last A ability because it synergizes more with what the robot ships are. Calculate overall is my favorite mechanic in the game because, like I've said, I think a couple times now, and I may have said it offline today. To me, Calculate is what Focus should have been. To me personally, in the game,
I think I may have responded the same way, but I'm going to do it again. That's how I thought Focus worked when I first started playing the game.
But Focus is too broad stroke. It's like Focus should be if you had a Force sensitive pilot. Focus should be able to affect everything. Where just a normal, Biggs flying and holding off the Empire, his focus shouldn't be as powerful because what did he do? He staved off. He didn't, dodge any attacks. He just blew up when necessary.
Well, and I make that same argument with like generic pilots. Like generic pilots,
absolutely.
Like how do they get the? I recognize that to me, and again, this is going to go back to my old role playing game. There used to be a mechanic in the D6 West End Games version of the Star Wars role playing game, where every character had the ability, if you were Force sensitive, to add a Force die to your dice roll, and it was an exploding die mechanic. So if it rolled a 6, you added an additional dice roll and could continue to explode that way. If it rolled a 1, it took 1 away. And that's what the Focus really kind of felt like to me, is like that was supposed to kind of represent the Force inside the game. But generic pilots got it. Non-Force sensitive characters got it. Like everybody got it. So it was really kind of like it felt out of place, which is why I played it the way that I did in the original, but until I was staunchly corrected.
I always thought of it in a different way. I always thought Focus is your standard being a pilot. You're focusing on what you're doing. If everything is going as it should, Focus is if you're trying to shoot someone, you can do it a little bit better if that's what you're trying to do. If you're trying to be evasive, you can do it a little bit better if that's what you're trying to do. If you bump, you can't focus on doing either of those things because you're trying to not hit the ship. If you run over a rock, you can't focus on doing one of those things so Focus isn't ability. Focus is the standard of all pilots. Luke gets to do he's using the Force to have his quasi-focus all the time. Vader is that powerful in the Force, so he can always focus and do something else. So
okay,
that's what
I now stand.
Yeah,
that's a much better explanation.
I do get that, but to me, it should have been delineated.
Yeah,
it's just flavor. It's game flavor. Because one thing about Focus that Focus allows what's in the game today and creates the problem in the game today. Because you can use, many abilities allow you to use Focus in conjunction with Evade. Which, when you get an IG with a Focus and Calculate tokens,
I think
that's kind of.
I don't even mind Focus and Evade. Focus and Evade it is tough, but it's when you get Focus and Evade and auto thrusters and Palpatine and stealth device and and regen. So the game from earlier, I was talking about Niam Num with it's only got 2 evade dice, but it's got auto thrusters on it. It's like I'm shooting him with Vader's 2 attack dice, and it's like, oh, we're at range 3, so I'll spend my hit because there's no point me making you roll dice because I can't damage you. So I'll spend my hit to make you remove a shield. So just that level of stacking and guaranteed results. Focus Evade on its own isn't guaranteed, so I don't really mind it. And the fact that they've cut it down is a good thing, but it's only a limited number of ships that can do it, and the fact that that evade doesn't add a result, it changes one of your dice to it, is awesome. That brings it down a level.
One die.
Yeah.
Right, which is great.
Yeah.
That's actually a good fix, because we need the game to be an offensive game, not a defensive game.
Yeah, and
for the game to play in an hour and 15 minutes, I think that's the best way to do it. And you look at how many games go to time in X-Wing in large tournaments. There's a lot of games that go to time because of that ability. Because you can't knock a ship off the board fast enough.
Yeah.
And now I really like this. I like that they're putting an offensive tilt into the game. The evade isn't added. The evade is an effect on a die. That's a very big thumbs up. Calculate's not. It's not added anything. It's just an effect on a die. Just to me, focus affecting all dice is just, that's where, for me, it's always been just that little bit too much. But
looking at that, that's where they tried to autocorrect the game, though. So, like, you had bombs that were doing auto damage. You had things like harpoon missiles come into the game, which, if you are one of those ships, it's a good counter to you to be able to push that damage through. But if you're not one of those ships that's doing the defensive token stacking, you're just getting blown off the board before there's ever any shot. So I feel like they hard corrected in the wrong direction,
right,
to try to compensate for that.
See, and I go back to the beginning of the game. The 3 X-Wing versus TIE swarms. This is where the game, to me, was out of balance, because in the beginning, and I'm just talking about the beginning portion of it, and I know there are occurrences where the 3 X-Wings beat the TIE swarms, but you really had to rely on dice, like literally good rolls in that point, because when you had Howl Runner, so offensively, you had TIE fighters shooting 2 offensive dice against 2 defensive dice with all this correctable ability. And you would have focus tokens on all those TIE fighters, so your reroll would be usually into 2 hits, or the percentages would put a TIE fighter into 2 hits, where an X-Wing would a lot of times be taking 2 hits, because the only way that you can get through the TIE fighter's defense at the time was you're rolling 3 dice versus 3 defense dice, and the 3 defense dice are getting modified due to the focus into 2 or 3 evades, where you had to take the damage on the X-Wing to put damage onto the TIE fighter.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the game, that was a difficult thing. If you're a Rebel player, it came to flying and strategy and using bigs correctly to make it work way back when. And we're kind of not at that same point, because there's so much coming into the game right from the get-go. But I'm really happy that the offensive side matters more. That still focus is going to be for TIE fighters. If people are playing swarms, you're back to the same thing you were in the beginning, where you're going to have 3 dice with a focus, most likely, because you still have a Howl Runner, you still have the same effect. There's just a lot of other stuff out there that can just drop ships.
That's why I happen to think that list is actually, at least coming out of the gate, going to be a really good list.
Right.
Because damage sticks more, the token stacking is gone, and the ability to even just roll 2 dice with 1 reroll, with Howl Runner being there, that it's going to afford that ability that, while sure, my 7 ships are pretty squishy and you can damage them pretty quick, there's 7 of them. They're
right.
throwing out enough attack dice that enough of that damage is going to stick to start bringing you down. That's why, more than anything else, and it's mostly because I love TIE swarms and I want to fly TIE fighters, that I honestly think that list is going to be something to be contended with, at least in the early game of 2nd edition.
Right, and I agree with you on that. I think it will.
Yeah. I'm pretty excited for this return to the base of the game, and I feel like they're going in the right direction for it, where you say, like, the TIE swarms get all these little bits and pieces which just make them work slightly better. I'm sure we're going to talk about it when we do a Rebel focus as well, so I don't want to tread on that too much, but overall, regen being nerfed, but the fact that there's potential to have multiple regenning ships in the Rebels at a level we haven't previously seen. So I'll max it. So if you can fit,
That's a preview for next week.
if you can fit four X-wings that all have regen, because they can all take an R2 astromech. It's a generic astromech.
And isn't the ship better? Don't they have either one more shield or one more hull on there?
We've got 4 hull and 2 shields, and that would give them the ability to regen up to 2 shields. So that
per ship.
Yeah, and that's where you get into that thing, Sean, of the rebel player is then happy to, in that initial engagement, I will trade some damage on this ship. That is the one that will break off and run. He can do a regenning. Then you either focus on the targets I'm presenting you. At that point, he's regened, another one breaks off, and he can come back around.
Right, it's the peel off and run.
Yeah. And that I used to do that running the TIE Swarm all the time, and try and keep that TIE fighter alive, and do it if they want to get the points for it. They've got to chase a 1 hit point TIE fighter into a bad position, so the rest of my swarm is behind them. And that kind of play style, you might have the negative connotations in your head of, I've now got 4 ships that are all regenning, this is bullshit, it only used to be 1. But it was 1 that would regen infinitely. These ones is finite, so I'm hoping that is a fix unto itself. But you might not be able to fit 4 of them in there, but you're surely going to be able to run a triple X-Wing list where they can all regen. And and it's actionless regen as well.
And with higher bid. With higher bid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think I just found my son's first build for Rebels. He's going to want to lean towards B-Wings, and I don't think B-Wings can take astromechs, but that would be cool.
They can take HLCs, though. Yeah.
Yes, they can. Yes, they can.
5 dice range 1.
They're the knife fighter.
Yeah.
I just want to see one do a Talon Roll 1. Oh, God, I can't wait.
I did the 1 swoop with the Reaper yesterday as well. This is awesome.
Oh, nice. It's such an amazing position maneuver.
And because you've got to flappy wing it first as well, this is complete tangents now.
Oh, of course, absolutely.
But I'm going to swing around you and then flip around, and I love it. I love flying that way so much. Flappy wings and swooping is awesomely good fun. Like the angles you can create is amazing. And this is what we were saying about the Interceptor getting a swoop. The angles you can create are awesome. It's just fun.
Yeah, I know Chad was kind of lamenting the fact that it lost what did it lose? The 5K?
Yeah.
So what? I mean, you're getting the 3 sloop. I mean, it doesn't take you nearly as far out of combat, and you can go left or right on that one. You don't know where it's going to show up. I think that's a huge boon to the ship. I really do.
Yeah, and it's repositioning, which is just incredible. And when the game re-releases, being able to reposition in short increments rather than long increments is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
B-wing at 1, it's like you said, a B-wing 1 sloop. If you set it up correctly, now you're on the side of the TIE Swarm, and they can't shoot at you. I mean, that's pretty.
And the
powerful.
next turn, you're behind them with a B-wing with an HLC,
or you're in front of them, actionless. They're actionless with you in front of them. So
right, exactly.
It'll be pretty interesting. I do like the changes. I do like the dial changes I've seen so far. I think that they're well put together. There's nothing that's outrageous that I've seen yet on dials. I'm so excited. 2 months is too long. And unfortunately, I was supposed to go to Gen. I have my badge. I have my ticket to play in the Legion tournament and play Vampire Hunters, with Ryan Krippendorf, and then I got sick, and now that's out the window because I don't have the money anymore to do it, or the time off ability. So
I was going to send you with my credit card, Sean.
I know you were. I know. A lot of people were.
If you move to a social Republic of Canada, you could get sick all you want.
Right. Yeah, but unfortunately, I live in the soon-to-be social Republic of the United States. So won't be able to do anything like that. So. It's all good. It's 2 months is 2 months, and getting pre-ordering the core set instead of buying it will be nice because I'll get the free damage deck with it. And,
Hey, real quick on that. So that's something that's a good, interesting you brought that up. And since we're completely off tangent on that one, I think we're done with our main topic for the moment. We can kind of set that aside for a second. When I was talking to my local game store, they said when they were doing the ordering, they didn't mention anything in the ordering for. I don't know if they've even put the official orders up yet, but they weren't certain how to get the extra damage decks that come with those.
Absolutely no idea.
The only person I know it's doing it is if you go to Team Covenant's website, if you purchase, and there's no discount on it. So, like, if you're half the reason why you want to order online is because you're getting it for a discount. I happen to be a pay where you play kind of guy, and I prefer to send them into my local store and keep their doors open because they're kind enough to let me come there and play tournaments there. But the only ones that I've ever seen that are doing that is the Team Covenant. Team Covenant saying if you pay the full price, you get the extra damage deck. But beyond that, no one seems to know how they're getting them.
We don't know. Yeah. I'll ask, but again, it'll be through Canada, so it'll be different again. So I'll see if I can chase it up for next time if there's any more information. So.
I just happen to know that both you guys have game store connections a little bit closer and tighter than I do. I don't know if you guys had seen anything because I don't know if they're just gonna like. And I completely different game, but like I know whenever they give like the buy a box Magic promo cards, they just send out a sleeve of them and like, all right, you pass those out whenever those come out. Is it going to be the same situation when you buy them at the local store?
I don't think so because, you know, I think with Magic it's a little bit different. They have a different distribution model.
No, I know. I'm just curious as to how.
The model I think that we have right now with the current distributor of Fantasy Flight games, especially these model skirmish games, I'm finding out that the distributors of bias is very biased. You know, if you're a large order store, you're going to get more credence to kits and everything else. If you're a small margin store or a small purchase store, you're getting less of that consideration. So,
right, which is where my concern comes in.
Which I'm going to be as diplomatic as I can on that because, you know, there are connections here, but I'm finding out that there's a bias in distribution, so I don't know how that's going to work. Truthfully, what I'm
being is I want 2 of those decks. Damn it, that's all I want. I'm buying 2 core sets. I want 2 of those decks. I don't want to use the small one. I want to use the big one, and whichever way I need to do it to get there is how I'm going to do it. If I have to order from Team Covenant, I will.
Well, I was just going to say that's actually probably what I'm going to end up doing. Sorry, Sparta. You know, I know, but it's the only way that I can guarantee that piece.
You can order it direct from FFG's website.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, that's true. That probably guarantees it even more than because distribution still is in play. So that's a good point, Chris. And I think that's probably the way I'll go with it.
Like even some other distributors, like Miniature Market, for example. Like Miniature Market's selling it at a discounted price, but they're not including the damage deck as part of that. Right. So that's where I'm like, so I don't really see any place online that you can go and get those unless you order them directly from FFG and pay full MSRP. Or Team Covenant, which is basically doing the same thing. I prefer to do it at my local game store and guarantee to get them, but I don't know that I can guarantee that, and I want both of those decks.
What I would do is this is how I will play this distribution game: is I'll buy a guarantee somewhere, and then I'll buy locally. You know, so I'll have 2 core sets. It gives me, it gives me enough. You know, it'll basically give me what I need as far as that type of stuff goes. Then if my son wants to play again, we'll have the second damage deck.
Yeah, that's the boat that I'm in too. So, granted, can you use the mini one to play the game for the damage deck? Yes, absolutely, you can use it. But for me, knowing that there's a special edition larger one that I can use all the same size sleeves, that's really where I want to go. Like, I want to retire all of my mini sleeves.
Right, exactly, and that's the kind of the way that I want to do all of this. Is the way I should have done it the first time. Is I want to, because 2.0, I'm pretty sure is going to be here to stay. We're not going to see a 2.5 with this game or a 3.0 or anything in the near future. So for me, I want to collect all the cool stuff that I kind of missed out on because I ran everything. What people don't understand is in the early days of FFG and kits and everything else, they did not consider the TO. The TO was not a consideration in that. It came with
so like that first range ruler that came out, some of that early stuff. Exactly. That's where like I still have that like that hang up on the fact that I'm not doing the 1E store championships because there is 2nd E stuff in there, but I don't know. I freely admit I have never purchased anything online, but one of those things is like I don't really have a super big interest in the game. If I really want one that badly, I can go get it.
Correct. Then you pay a premium price, but that's the nature of the beast. That's the nature of the beast of a collectible, anything collectible. So
yeah, like I would have loved to have gotten those first edition acrylic target locks whenever they first came out. Oh my god! But it's the only thing I've never acquired because target locks always seem to be, and it's weird, but target locks always seem to be the weird ones that only ever came up in big events, either at Worlds or at a Nationals, and you had to do well to get them. And I've never made it to a Nationals. My own fault for not being able. I'm going to try to change that with this upcoming 2nd edition. I obviously made it to Worlds, but didn't have what it takes to make it that high up to get there. Right. So it's dice for me, and then it's the acrylics is always what really is super. So the cards are cool, but they're not needed for me. It's the acrylic.
And I never was a person who played with the. I mean, I did here and there, but I never played with the cards. The cool. I just had them in a book, and later sold them to pay for Worlds in 2016, along with all my acrylics. I had the original. I had 4 of the 5 original target locks. I had. The U.S. Nationals target locks. I had
those nice.
Those were the cool red-blue ones that they had. So I had some of the stuff, but it's just I want to be a good player. That's my goal, is to become a good player rather than be a great TO. I just want to be a good player and play the game and have fun. And
do you think FFG is going to rule out and say you can't use your old acrylics from the last game because some of them are different shapes? I've heard that question asked to me. So I have the old target.
Maybe target locks.
Because maybe target locks, but I have the old stress tokens, for example. I use the old dark green focus tokens and the dark green main tokens.
I'm 100% certain that they're going to come around your house, and if they see you playing with them, they're going to kick your teeth in and then take them away.
Can it be Alex Beamy himself doing it? That'd be awesome. Oh no, it'd have to be Wade because he's an OP. So Wade can come to my house and like take a baseball bat to my knees. Don't use the old tokens. Crack.
There is absolute. So is it not even in the rule book? Does it not say about third-party tokens, or is that the event document? I don't know.
That'll be the event document.
It's going to be exactly the same. You can use third-party tokens. Who cares?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not third party; they're FFG official.
But it doesn't matter. It just who cares?
Yeah, no, I could see.
Do we have to go back to talking about like TIE Fighter art changing again? I don't care, Ed.
No,
I just don't care.
No,
you use what tokens you want.
My concern is that the rulebook specifically states round tokens versus colored tokens for which ones are being removed. And for example, the stress tokens are triangles from first edition. They are not triangles in second edition. So I could see someone technically pulling up a rulebook in the middle of a tournament of a big event if they wanted to be rules lawyers.
So could you see that though?
Yes, I've had it happen to me at Worlds.
Exactly.
Worlds,
I know people it's happened to.
Tell me that I had to go to all the cardboard because it's in the rules, even though the tournament doc said something else, even though the judge said something else. The guy was adamant about it, so I had to go from the my cool X-Wing TO Man templates to back to card rate. That's why I always carried them with me. And back to all cardboard tokens, which is why I always carry some cardboard tokens with me, because the guy was, a stiff weenie when it came to doing that. And okay, I'm not going to argue it, but
I had someone at Worlds when I was there. That's right around the time we started seeing the acrylic.
That's at the point where I asked to see his Senator's shuttle. But where's all your corset components, dickhead?
Yeah, bring them all up because you're supposed to bring them all.
Yeah,
so we need to have the TIE Fighter, you need to have the X-Wing.
And this goes on to a lot of the nature of miniatures gaming. But you have an example of it happening, and I'm sure had you dug your heels in and been a dick and called a judge as well, and you would have gone back and forth. And I'm sure there's no way you lose that game or get disqualified.
Right.
But,
right.
know,
No.
if
and, and I know that because I knew everybody. You know, it's not like it was a situation.
No,
what it came to me was, who cares? You know, if you're gonna be that pissy about a game, about it was a weird situation overall. But you know, the guy was a nice guy. It wasn't a bad thing. Game still played. I still lost, and it was all good.
What I mean by it is people get hung up on theoretical arguments far too much.
Right.
So
absolutely.
In the rules question thing, there's been people arguing about whether you can use 3PO with the camouflage thing that lets you if you get a red target lock token, roll 1 defense dice. On an evade result, you discard the target lock. So people are like, oh, so you could pay 3 points for a modification crew combo that can 100% guarantee that you can never be target locked by the first ship that tries to target lock you. Awesome.
Yeah.
But people are saying it doesn't work because it says on evade result, and 3PO adds an extra one. Let's fuck off. just die. It's like, but the rules work this way because of the English language. So where does it say that though? And
the rules work the way that I want them to work, and that's really what rules interpretation always comes down to. What is my best advantage, or what gives my opponent the least advantage, or the greatest disadvantage? That's what I have always found in rules arguments.
Yeah.
As a TO, when I would walk up to a table, I would sit there and tell them, "Can you decide?" The first question is, "Can you decide it between yourself?" No. Okay. The moment that I am interjected into that conversation, it takes anything that you do. It takes it now to my interpretation, not your interpretation.
Yeah.
And my interpretation will always side onto. And I'm a rules as written guy, not an interpretation guy.
No.
And and it always. And then I have the argument. Well, that's the wrong. I don't care if it's wrong to you. Yeah. This is you included me. This is the way.
The rules say that I'm right and you're wrong.
Right. Exactly.
Factually, if I'm wrong and you're right, that's irrelevant. You brought me into this. You will abide by my ruling. Right. Suck it up, sunshine. If you don't like it, don't come to my events.
It's
and don't call it TO.
Right, exactly. When I went to Chicago and judged the first day of the first system open in Chicago at Adepticon, the first thing I came into it's kind of like 2014 Worlds when it came to the buy. The regional buy, was it a super buy? Did you get the super buy? Originated from a conversation between me, Alex Davey, Frank Brooks, and Matt Baxter, because there was no interpretation to that point of how a buy worked. And for me, the easiest way to determine it is it has to be a 200-point buy, because you're penalizing somebody for achieving something if you don't make it, in which they did. They went back to the 150, and that's their choice. It's the same thing Adepticon with Dengar. When Dengar dies, does he get the shot back? If you go by rules as written in the English language, it states in the rules that as soon as you receive, or however it was written, as soon as you receive the damage cards, you remove that chip from the table.
There's no flow chart. Don't bother looking.
No, I'm not flow charting. So he brought something up that did jump out to me at the rule book. I know this is going back to
and they changed
going back to the news. But he said it, and I want to make sure that I read this exactly as is stated in the rule book. If a ship is destroyed during the engagement, this is second E, by the way, for the record. If a ship is destroyed in the engagement phase, it is removed after all ships that have the same initiative are currently engaged as the currently engaged ship have engaged. This is called the simultaneous fire rule, which represents that ship having the same initiatives or essentially attacking at the same time. So the way that first edition would work, for example, and I'll bring her up because I love her. If you had 2 pilots or 2 or 3 pilots that are pilot skill 8 and you killed Howlrunner, her ability stopped functioning the minute she died because she was being taken off the table. The new simultaneous fire rule says she's still on the table.
Right.
Her effect still takes place until you get to the next initiative step, which is, I'm glad you brought that up because that was something else that I did.
The problem with this is like massive tangents, and we should probably look at wrapping up this segment. But
we should, but this is
hey, we could call this the news and massive tangent section.
The problem with Dengar was that he remains on the board unless he's already fired. Because with simultaneous fire, if he went first, he's had his chance to fire, so he's removed. If he didn't go first, he's not had the chance to fire. So then he shoots his retaliation shot, but he's dead and doesn't stay on for his simultaneous fire now because he's had a chance to attack. And that's why the flowchart's awesome, and Frank did a really good job in inventing it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great solution to just a weird problem, but then you had to completely rewrite, the moment you start flowcharting stuff in, you're kind of you're moving away from that original rule set. You're moving away from, what is intent. And I don't care, what Fantasy Flight says, that's to me is what is the law and everything. It's just funny to me, that in 2 cases in my time dealing as a TO, there were 2 cases where input and finality were 2 completely different things, where they changed it so much. Adepticon it was one thing, then they retconned it with the flowchart. 2014 we had the super buy was one thing, and then it ended up as another.
I have no problem with a ruling being made in the moment because it has to be, and then taking your time to see
and that's exactly it.
Unexpected connotations of that decision.
Yeah, and like a lot of people used to come to me and ask me, if I was mad that they retconned the super buy, and I'm like, no, it's their game. I don't make the rules to their game. It's just I interpret the rules at the time. When there is no rule, you have to interpret the rule one way or the other. And it just has to be, a resolution to it. And for me, that was the simplest resolution at the time because there was no precedent prior to. So you're going to take it to the extreme, and then Fantasy Flight looks at it and says, well, it's not a full 200, it's a 150, Good, Now we have a rule in place by the company that makes the rules.
Agree or disagree. That is what it is. Yeah. All right, so I think that's a good spot to jump off on that one. So we're going to go ahead and close out the show right after this. All right, so that's going to do it for episode 3 of Lack of Focus. Before we go, we always like to give the shout outs to the listener questions. I know we tried to finish up the last ones, but we didn't quite get to the end. So Kris has one final question from our listener. Kris, take it away.
So this one is another question from Jerry Holt, and he says, are the crates right in that all we know how to do is joust, and we're extremely bad at jousting, or bad at it? So I think this is, my interpretation will be that it's a twofold question, obviously. The only thing players know how to do in X-Wing is line the ship up and take jousting values and fly at each other.
Okay, so I'll field this one first. I'll let Sean field his second one. I disagree with that statement fundamentally. I think when you start playing the game, that is probably your initial reaction. Drive forward, K-turn, go backwards. I think as you start getting into the game, and especially when you start getting into the turn 0 stuff where you're placing rocks, if you go back in the FFG articles, Paul Heaver had this fantastic turn 0 article about placing rocks and establishing firing lanes and movement lanes as you're trying to go through. So what you should be doing as you're planning your placement of your ships is planning how you intend to fly those. Like plan out your first 5 or 6 turns where the ships you think are going to end up. So it's not just a joust. There's a lot of feign left, go right, juke right kind of thing to try to put ships in other positions so that it's not strictly a jousting scenario. Does that break down to that on occasion? Sure. If you're flying a Defender, for example, and you have a 4K that's white, why wouldn't you? But other ships, I think, there's more finesse, there's more technique, there's more skill based on trying to come in from those flanks. And the next thing you know, on turn 3, there's a ship that comes in from the rear that you weren't anticipating being there just because that's how he plotted out his first 3 or 4 turns.
And I have to go, I agree with that completely because number one, you always go back to the, and engagement only lasts the planning phase. What other people do, takes it out of what you plan to do. The game is a jousting game. I hate to say this. It's a point and shoot game. So when you look at that, because you have forward fire arcs on most of the ships, it's a point and shoot game. So when you look at a swarm, it's a joust list. When you look at 3 X-Wings, it's a joust list. Now, what takes it away from that is how you react once everything starts. And if you have good flight strategy, if you're a tactician in the game, it's not a jousting game. It's a game of advantage to disadvantage at that point, which means you have to fly. But ultimately, though, the game, it's one thing that Bob Randall has right, is it is a jousting value game. You have to look at it that way. Because, and especially now in 2.0, when you're taking most effects down to a bullseye arc, it actually changes that concept of the game where you now have 2 arcs you're playing with. One means more than the other. And it's going to become more of a finesse game. This actually creates, I think, more finesse in the game, forcing most of the ships to narrowly put something in, half of its front arc, in the center of its front arc. But one thing I'm going to say is it's all based on player skill.
I agree.
When it comes down to it, when I look at Paul Heaver play, and I look at myself play, Paul Heaver is
way different level,
1,000 times better. He's practiced everything. He knows what he needs to do. He sees it before you'll ever see it. Whereas I probably see it too late and after the fact. He is the true ballet dancer on the X-Wing mat, where I'm the clunky guy coming out of at the bar trying to do the, some type of dance, that I can't do in the wrong shoes.
It sounds like me at any wedding. So I know I've always equated this game, like people often ask me, like, well, what's so great about this game? Why do you like it so much? Now I've played, and this is not going to surprise anyone that knows me, but I played competitive chess for a really long time in my youth. And one of the things that separates okay chess players from the good or even the great chess players is that ability to be able to plot out ahead 3, 4, and 5 moves ahead to know where you're going. So not only are you setting up maneuvers on your first turn that pay dividends on the 5th turn, but you're also anticipating where things are going to be going. And that's really, in my mind, where it cuts the wheat from the chaff as far as good players and great players, is that ability to look at a board and say, I'm going to go here, I'm going to force his ships into this direction, and then I'm going to do this, and to have that plan. Now, don't get me wrong, all best laid plans are great until they don't survive contact with the enemy. I totally get that. And there is a point in time where, especially in the mid game, where things are kind of a bit muddled. But that opening, this is the reason why chess games are broken down into opening, mid game, and end game, is because there's different strategies that take place in that. So if you were able to start your opening within the first 3 or 4 moves and really have a good idea of where you want to go and what you want to do and how you're going to lure ships into a kill box, that is massively going to benefit you in the mid game and help you towards getting to that end game with a win.
And the other piece to that too is you also have the factor of RNG in the game. You don't know what your dice are going to do. I've seen many games where a player has no ability to modify dice, 4 hits, or
Yep.
You have every ability to modify dice and you get 4 blanks. So
that's usually the player that doesn't plan what he's going to do the next turn, the turn before. They're just reacting to what's going on. And that's why, like, for good players who can see that, it's super frustrating going, that shouldn't have happened.
What I would say, from my thoughts on the question, is as an overarching community, meta-wise, yeah, the only thing the meta knows how to do is look at jousting values and numbers and say that a B-wing is better than an X-wing because its numbers are better. The efficiency of this ship is whatever. This upgrade stacked on top of it pushes it to this degree. And that takes... intellectually, we all know that X-wing's a positional game. But people still joust gunboats with harpoon missiles. People still fly at 40 LTs. People, intellectually, you might know that something is a wrong decision, but that's why certain lists and archetypes become strong is because the analysis of them is all based on the numbers. That analysis is then perpetuated by the podcasters, which spreads that information out to a community, and the game becomes all about those numbers and having the ability to do something. And Aaron Bonner was a massive front runner in looking outside of that box, and I'm so happy. I know we spoke about it at the time, but Simeon winning with that, not even with IGs, because IGs won as a massively efficient damage dealing list. The list that Simeon used to not deal damage and win is some, a massively concept that we spoke about in the past, and it's being acknowledged that it exists, but to see it executed and to show that no, this is viable and it wins. And that's where it comes down to. People might know that jousting isn't the only option, but it's the easy option, and that's what people gravitate towards. And I feel like that's part of the problem with 1.0 and the pure number of options and upgrades and the combinations, and the fact that it becomes a deck building game, that rather than what's happening on the table. And that's the hope for 2.0. And that's why when we were talking last week, I was saying I look at a list, it's really hard to make a list, and in my head it still doesn't look good because I've got those 1.0 goggles on of this is the efficiency I need to get from my list for it to be competitive. And I felt it playing yesterday, playing my list and going against not even the broken combos of 1.0, but those combos when I'm handicapping myself and bringing it down, it feels fundamentally different that I've got to position perfectly, and I didn't, so I lost. I'm not going to blame the list or anything like that, but having those little things all get brought into line, reducing the power of everything, makes positional play far more important. And that's where we will see a split in the play, a more fragmentation of levels of player. But people will gravitate towards Dash with Loot Gunner. That will be a solid list. That will be the quad TLTs of Wave 1 of New X-Wing. That'll be what the shitters all bring out because they haven't got a fucking idea how to play the game. And, go from there. The good players will get the most out of all of their other ships. And it'll go back to what it was Wave 3, Wave 4, when the game was still, I hesitate to say interesting, but, when it didn't come down to double tapping ghosts or TLT meta of just... I'm going to insult people now, but there's no skill doing well with those lists, but the floor being higher and the ceiling being lower, and it just being steady Eddie going through, it does what it does, and you can either beat it or you can't. Having to know that in the list building phase, if my list cannot kill a Y-Wing in one round, I lose to quad TLTs.
Yes.
That's
there used to be an old axiom that I used to use in my 40K days, and it used to be functioning in X-Wing as well, is that the list can't save you. That you could carbon copy a list directly off of List Juggler and be able to say, this is a tournament winning list. I'm going to take this list to my local store championship, and it wouldn't win you the game. What used to really work is it was the skill behind the list that used to beat that. The problem, and this is indicative of why first edition is so uninteresting to me at this point, is it reached a point where the list could save you, where you could have those combos, you could still make those fundamental flying mistakes and not be punished for it. And that, I think, is indicative of a game that is broken. If I can outfly you, I should be able to beat you. The list itself shouldn't save you.
Yeah.
I would agree with that 100%. Yeah, it's a great question.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to go ahead and close everything out. Sean, always good to talk to you, my friend. I think we're going to try to do hopefully a Thursday night. I do want to point out that I go on vacation to Vancouver, and we're going to have to discuss off camera as far as the time frame for that to make sure that we can get a recording in for that week. That is going to, we might have to record next week because I go on vacation. Yeah, in 2 weeks. So we might have to try to record in between those times. I'll get you actually the dates whenever.
We'll work it out.
But I do want to make sure that we're maintaining our 2 week schedule.
Yeah.
So if we have to do it next, if we have to do it next Saturday, we can probably try it next Saturday.
As long as Chad can get his tire fixed in time, we should be good.
I hope so. So yeah, always good to talk to you, my friend.
Yep, it's great to be here. Like I said, I'm I'm kind of jonesing for 2.0 at this point.
Here too.
Next week, I'm going to look at my purchase options for the core set, for the damage deck, and everything else.
I might just have to double down and get the ones from Team Covenant.
Well, I'm probably just going to go straight through Fantasy Flight. It's just easier. I already have an account with them anyway, so.
Oh, okay, perfect.
It's easier. It's the easiest way to guarantee it, and then from Sparta, I'll buy another one and hopefully get a damage deck. But it's coming, guys. It's coming quick. Today's the 21st. We're, I think, less than 2 months at this point.
Can't wait.
We're, that first Tuesday night after 2.0 rolls out is going to be the other thing that's nice. And I'm going to say this, and I know this is probably going a little too long, but the coolest thing about this change going from 1.0 to 2.0 is the moment that I open up my Scum and my Rebel conversion kits, I have everything available to play, unless I haven't purchased it, which is, if I haven't purchased it, it's a ship I'm not interested in the first place. But I'm ready to go at that point. I have in my basement, I have, just stacks and stacks and stacks of this stuff ready to go. And now I can bring it back out and put it on the table again and play a game that I enjoy again.
Can't wait.
Yep.
Chris, always good to talk to you. I know we have some housekeeping stuff I'm going to let you roll through, so go right ahead with that.
Okay, so it's awesome. And thanks again for everyone actually making it out and getting on. It's a shame Chad couldn't make it. Firstly, I'm going to give a big thank you to our Patreons. So thanks to Sean. He's a high roller.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks to Dissect Productions. They are an awesome company who do a lot of good work. So thanks.
Yeah, they do amazing work.
Thanks me. That's good. And Gustavo. Gustavo actually, after the last episode, increased his Patreon. So he must be doing something right. He's booked himself up. Man. So thanks a lot for that. We really appreciate it. We are currently $2 away from the level we set for setting up its own feed. So if they keep coming in, $2 will get us to that. So if you would like to see Lack of Focus have its own feed on Podbean, I think was going to be the first one we committed to, which will have an RSS feed through iTunes set up as well. If you don't want to get mixed in with the Dice Hate stuff anymore, that is the goal. $2 more will sort that out. Thank you to everyone who jumped in on the Facebook page. We've had a couple more likes again this week. Chad's been memeing away.
That he has.
So you can find us on Facebook at Lack of Focus Podcast. We do have the email set up, so if you want to send any questions for the question segment or any other feedback, you can send that to lackoffocuspodcast@gmail.com. We still have the 20% discount code for offworlddesigns.com, and the code is 18CONPC. I'll again put that description in the episode description, and a link to the website if you want some money off some cool t-shirts. And
yay!
Yeah, I feel like we're doing well. We're 3 episodes in. We've
On a regular schedule?
On a regular schedule, in spite of, near-death experiences for like half of the cast now.
Half the staff?
Yeah, the universe may be conspiring against us, but we're managing to keep it going. Yeah, make sure you give us a like, give us your feedback. We really do appreciate it all. And shoot us any messages on Facebook. Let us know if there's any other social media you wanted to see us on. And feel free to check out the Sentry Box's Facebook page to watch me play some really bad X-Wing.
All right, so that is going to do it. I'm going to thank everyone for joining us. And once again, so next week we're going to faction focus onto the Rebel side. We're probably going to talk a ton of Dash Luke, but we're going to try to hit some other combos too in the faction focus, and of course whatever news comes out during that time frame. So as always, fly casual. Thank you once again for joining the Lack of Focus X-Wing podcast. Check out Dice Hate Productions for all of the latest episodes, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you again next episode.